Portrays various moments in their life together, moments rich with unfulfilled opportunity for building a positive lifelong relationship. Here are just a few lines from the song. My son turned 10 just the other day. He said, "Thanks for the ball, Dad. Come on, let's play. Can you teach me to throw?" I said, "Not today. I got a lot to do." He said, "That's okay." Later we hear, "I've long since retired and my son's moved away. I called him up just the other day. I said, 'I'd like to see you if you don't mind.' He said, 'I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time.'" That song touches an emotional chord as the listener is given a glimpse of the dynamic between a father and a son as it evolves over time. They always seem to be out of sync, so engaged in their individual lives that they miss out on the life together. As I listen to the song, I can feel the sting of those little moments of rejection. The cumulative effect of those moments takes a tragic toll on the special relationship that could have existed between this father and his son. It's a sad song, one that too often rings true in too many lives, and not just individual lives and in families, but across peoples and nations and cultures. The events of Charlottesville and Barcelona in the last several weeks speak to the devastating effects of fear and prejudice and misunderstanding and hatred between people. The story of the encounter between Jesus and a Canaanite woman, which we just heard, begins with a similar tragic quality. The two main characters, the woman and Jesus, are out of sync. The woman is distraught because her daughter is possessed by a demon. A parent or anyone who knows someone lovingly may have experienced one of those horrible moments when their child or loved one is suffering with a life-threatening illness or injury. That gives us an insight into this mother's terror, the mother's utter sense of helplessness, her desperate desire for her daughter to be made well. Jesus, the healer, has demonstrated his power over demons. So we as hearers of this story know that Jesus has the potential. He could relieve the girl and her mother from this devastating demonic possession. But like the father and the son in the Chapin classic, the Canaanite woman and Jesus are out of sync, seemingly destined not to connect despite their proximity. The culture of the day would not allow a Gentile woman to approach a Jewish man. The great healer was only passing through her home territory. This place was not his intended locale to continue his ministry. And she had no reasonable means to encounter him. But as desperate parents will do in desperate moments, she takes a desperate step. She cries out, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." Like the father who hears his son's request to play catch, this is a moment filled with great potential. Surely, the reader thinks, Jesus will rescue the girl from her bondage. But Jesus is focused on his God-given mission to the people of Israel. His ministry has grown. Demands upon his time and energy have skyrocketed. So many of his own countrymen and women need rescuing that Jesus ignores the woman's frantic request. His disciples, adhering to the norms of the day, treat the Gentile woman with disdain. Send her away, she's annoying us. We have more important matters to attend to. They rushed Jesus past the woman. Perhaps looking back, he says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Imagine the woman's panic hearing these words, seeing this great hope for saving her daughter walking away. The mother rushes to Jesus. As a sign of respect, she falls on her knees before him, pleading. Again, the moment is ripe with potential. Surely now Jesus will pour out his grace. But like the college kid on holiday, ready to go party with his friends, leaving his father alone with his longing, Jesus says, it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Ouch. What a zinger. What did this woman feel in that moment? Anger, humiliation, hopelessness? Whatever that emotional response, it could not quell the desire to see her daughter freed from the demons, nor her certainty that Jesus was the person who could save her girl. And so the woman violates the social mores of the day and speaks directly to Jesus. Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. And then Jesus says something to this woman who we do not hear him say to anyone else in the gospel. Woman, great is your faith. In the presence of such great faith, Jesus says to her, let it be done for you as you wish. And her daughter was healed instantly. The potential of the encounter is finally realized. The request answered. And the woman and the daughter's needs are met. A story that could have been as sad as the Chapin song truly ends on a high note. As I said, this is the only place in Matthew's gospel where Jesus uses the adjective great to describe someone's faith. What was it that made this woman's faith great? Was it her persistence? We do elsewhere hear Jesus commend persistence, but he also rejects mindless recitation and repetition. Was it the respect she shows in falling upon her knees before him? Many others show Jesus respect, at least outwardly, but Jesus doesn't equate signs of respect with faith. Perhaps it was her clever response to Jesus' comment about the throwing food to the dogs that provided the evidence that her faith was great. But Jesus encountered many brilliant men and women who knew much about God, but they are not said to have great faith. It seems to me what made her faith great was the combination of her awareness of her desperate need and her unshakable confidence in Jesus to meet that need. It is this potent combination of her need and her knowing Jesus' ability to meet that need that constitutes the greatness of her faith. Because she is so needy and he is so capable, the woman persists. His abundance in the face of her scarcity brings her to her knees in respect for him. So aware is she of her need and his great ability that the image of the dog waiting for table scraps comes to her mind. Now, many find the two misses in this story. First, when Jesus ignores the woman, and second, when he, in effect, calls her a dog. We find these offensive, upsetting, seemingly out of character. But perhaps if we are true to ourselves, we will recognize that we are offended because we can so much relate to this woman's experience. We have had moments when God seems too busy to respond to our needs. We have had moments when we feel that God is ignoring us. We may have had moments in which we feel that God is busy with others who are needier or more deserving of God's attention and care. And we might be angry at God for such a lack of attention. We may feel humiliated that after working so hard for so long and having given up so much, God still has not acted. Tragically, unlike the woman who is undeterred, our prayers too often grow weak and infrequent. Now, we may know that this is a problem, and in the face of today's gospel story, we wish we had greater faith. The truth is that faith itself is a gift. We cannot ensure that we come to possess it. But like the healing that Jesus offers to the demon-possessed daughter and her mother, faith is a gift that God is pleased to give. There are many lessons to be learned from the story of the Canaanite woman. And I would encourage you to focus upon the two elements that constitute the great faith of the Canaanite woman: her great need and her great certainty that Jesus could satisfy her need. But recognize an obstacle for us. By and large, we don't like to be needy or to think of ourselves as needy. North Americans in particular are known to medicate, anesthetize, engage in retail therapy and other distractions to keep us from facing our deepest needs. This past Wednesday evening, I gathered with several hundred people on the lawn in front of City Hall just down the street from St. George's. The group was gathered in solidarity with the people of Charlottesville, Virginia, where a clash between white supremacists and counter-protesters turned violent, leading to injury and death. A series of speakers addressed the crowd over the nearly 2-hour gathering. We heard personal stories from indigenous, Black, Muslim, and transgendered people. Each of them spoke of the all too frequent experiences of racism and other forms of prejudice that they experience here in St. Catherine's. I had that evening the sense that I have when I hear the cats in the cradle or hear the encounter between Jesus and the Canaanite woman, of people being out of sync with one another, of great potential at risk of being unrealized. From today's gospel story, we learn that it was a Canaanite woman's great need that makes possible her encounter with Jesus. If we don't acknowledge the depth of our need, we cannot expect to have such great faith. In the face of so many stories of prejudice and alienation last Wednesday evening, a great need for reconciliation seemed obvious. But the point of many of the speakers is that white people remain blissfully and willfully ignorant. Jesus, busy with his ministry to the people of Israel, could have ignored the woman's plea. But he is reminded by the Canaanite woman of the abundance and greatness of God's healing love. And he extends that love to the woman by healing her daughter. This story undoubtedly contributed to the early church's decision to expand their mission to include Gentiles, a decision that directly benefits myself and the many Christians that are not of Jewish descent. This one act of healing continues to bear fruit and witness to the power of great faith. It spurs us on in our lives and in our call to mission to the whole world. The certainty that God can satisfy our needs can be a challenge to develop. It takes time and careful consideration. The woman was listening to those stories of what Jesus had done and may have witnessed some herself. But St. George's has been celebrating this year its 225th anniversary. There are tremendous examples throughout that history of God's faithfulness, of God's blessing, and how placing our confidence in God has led to great things. Might we this day acknowledge our neediness and the neediness of our world and even our sense of helplessness to make a difference in the world? And may we proclaim and have the faith of the Canaanite woman, that we and those around us might enjoy even the glorious crumbs from the Master's table. Amen.